Shalom, Mubaraka, Mishpacha, peace and blessings, family. In this video, we're going to be talking about the location of Jerusalem. Where is the city of Jerusalem? Okay, first we're going to read the biblical descriptions of Jerusalem. Then we're going to actually look at the real Jerusalem, compare and analyze how the biblical Jerusalem is described. Okay. So the first thing that we must understand is that the biblical Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains, okay? Psalms 125 and 2, as the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so Yahuwah is round about his people, from henceforth even forever. The second thing we must understand about Jerusalem is that it is in the northern hemisphere. We know that Jerusalem is north of the equator. Why? Because pine trees grew there. Nehemiah 8 and 15. And that they should publish and proclaim in all their cities, and in Jerusalem, saying, Go forth unto the mount, and fetch olive branches, and pine branches, and myrtle branches, and palm branches, and branches of thick trees, to make booths, as it is written. Okay? So, with that being said, got to be the northern hemisphere because pine trees do not grow south of the equator. Also, when we look at other things when it comes to climate, it shows that it's in the northern hemisphere. The amount of snow that it gets, wind patterns, etc. All of it is described in scripture. But we're going to talk about that later when we're talking about the meteorology aspect of the Holy Land. But right now we're simply talking about Jerusalem. Okay. Also, according to scripture, Jerusalem is supposed to be destroyed. It's supposed to be heaps and ruins. So when we go in the book of Jeremiah chapter 26 verse 18, it states, Micah the Morashite prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, king of Yehudah, and spake unto all the people of Yehudah, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, Zion shall be plowed like a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. Lo, this is Ezekiel 13 and 12. Lo, when the wall is fallen, shall it not be said unto you, Where is the daubing wherewith you have daubed it? Therefore thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, I will even rend it with a stormy wind in my fury, and there shall be an overflowing shower in mine anger, and great hailstones in my fury to consume it. So will I break down the wall which you have daubed with untempered mortar, and will bring it down to the ground, so that the foundation thereof shall be discovered, and it shall fall, and ye shall be consumed in the midst thereof. And ye shall know that I am Yahuwah. This is talking about a serious, catastrophic weather event, okay? It says hailstones and stormy wind will cast down the walls of the city of Jerusalem. And even the foundation thereof will be discovered. That's when the Holy Land was flooded, okay? At the very end of our time in the Holy Land, when man and beast was destroyed out of the Holy Land, and the remnant who stayed in the Holy Land had to leave and flee and go eastward and cross the Mississippi and live on the eastern side of North America until the time when the Spaniards arrived and they seen all those black tribes over there on the east coast, from Florida to Texas and from Florida to New York. And all those tribes, a lot of those tribes, had Hebraic customs, okay? Now, our next point that we must understand is that it is supposed to be an agricultural area today. Micah 3 and 12 states, Therefore Zion for your sake shall be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. So it says it shall be plowed as a field. So you had this city of glory that was broken down, uninhabited for years and years. And then strange people come along. They they turned up the soil and turned it into a field for the crops that they grow as they eat up the produce of our land, like it says in Deuteronomy 28. It also says the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. So that does indicate plant life in the city of Jerusalem. It's not going to be pure desert. There's going to be some plant life there as well. Now, I want you to pay attention to this part because this part is probably the most important part there is. It is north of a valley that is northwest of another valley. Joshua 15:8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom unto the south side of the Jebusite. The same is Jerusalem, and the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward, which is at the end of the valley of giants northward. Now, I know that's hard to understand at first, but you have to draw it out in your head, right? So it says, the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom unto the south side of the Jebusite, the same as Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was before a time called Jebusi, the city of the Jebusites. Okay, now what we have to understand is that means that the valley of Hinnom was south of Jerusalem. Now it says unto the south side of Jerusalem, but you have to understand that the Hebrew word for unto is really all, which means along. In the Hebrew, it should say, from there the border went up the valley of Hinnom along the southern slope of the Jebusites, that is Jerusalem. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that the valley of Hinnom was along the south side of the city of the Jebusites, which is Jerusalem. So south of Jerusalem, we have the valley of Hinnom. Okay, that's the first thing we must understand. Now let's continue to put this together. And the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward. So the valley of Hinnom has a mountain to the west. Okay, pay attention to that part. We know the valley of Hinnom is south of Jerusalem, and there's a mountain to the west of the valley of Hinnom. Every valley has, is in between two mountains, right? Or multiple mountains. But in this case, the mountains are east and west, and one of the mountains are to the west. Okay, now understand this, but then it describes that western mountain. It says, which is at the end of the valley of giants northward, which means that the western mountain of the valley of Hinnom is at the northern part of the valley of giants. Okay, so that means that one valley is toward the northwest and the other valley is toward the southeast, and they border each other. Both of these valleys are south of Jerusalem, also known as the city of the Jebusites. And the valley of giants was also known as Kirjath Arba, or the Vale of Hebron. Okay. Also, it's supposed to have a river near it that was altered artificially. 2 Chronicles 32:30. The same Hezekiah also stopped the upper watercourse of Gihon and brought it straight down to the west side of the city of David. And Hezekiah prospered in all his works. So, first thing we must understand is that the Gihon River in this scripture is not talking about the same Gihon River in Genesis that flowed out of the Garden of Eden. We know that because this Gihon River compasses Jerusalem and the city of David, while the Gihon River of Genesis compasses the entire land of Cush. So that's a completely different river. The word Gihon literally just means to burst forth. So it could be any river for that matter. Hezekiah altered the course of the river. He changed the direction of which the river flowed, and he brought it to the west side of the city of David. Now we're going to be looking at some satellite imagery and show you that the true Jerusalem, there's an artificial waterway, an ancient artificial waterway that flows through the ruins of the true Jerusalem to the west side, that is. And you will see it and you will be amazed. Now, the next thing that we must understand is that the mountain to the east should have olive trees on it. Why is that? Because the mountain to the east is called the Mount of Olives. Zechariah 14:4. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. Okay? So scripture gets very specific with Jerusalem, and we have to take all these details together and put them together. Also, the mountain to the east should have a fault line under it, a tectonic fault line. How do I know that? Because if we continue reading the scripture, it says, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east and towards the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half the mountain shall be removed toward the north, and half of it towards the south. So there should be a tectonic fault line under the mountain toward the east of Jerusalem. There should be a transform boundary, not a divergent boundary, because a divergent boundary will result in magma spill, and we don't want that. So it's got to be a transform boundary, meaning the tectonic plates would slide against each other. And we'll look at this in just a second, guys. I'm telling you, all the key elements have to match Jerusalem. Okay? All the key elements that we see in the scriptures have to match the real Jerusalem. And here's the key point. Jerusalem has to be large enough to fit all the gathering of the children of Yasharal, plus the other nations during tabernacles. You have to understand that we are the remnant. All the children of Yasharal alive today are the remnant. A lot of people don't understand what remnant means. They think that remnant means only a select few of us who are righteous. That's not what remnant means. Remnant doesn't mean that. Remnant simply means to remain. When we were put in captivity, all our curses that was upon us made our population very low compared to what it should have been, right? Our oppressors killed many of us. Plagues and diseases killed many of us. The sword, famine, wild animals killed many of us. And the children of Yasharal who are alive today are the remnant. We are the ones that remain. And Yah said he will gather all the remnant, meaning he's going to gather all the children of Yasharal who remain alive. Now, only a righteous elect will actually make it to the gates of Jerusalem, because in the wilderness, a vast amount of us are going to perish because of our wickedness. You understand? However, all of us will be involved in the gathering. You understand? Not all of us will be involved in the actual settlement and rulership in the city of Judah, which is Jerusalem, but all of us will be gathered from, because Yah said, even if I scatter you to the utmost parts of the heaven, from thence will I gather you. So no matter where you are on this earth, if you are a bloodline Yasharali by DNA, Yah is going to gather you in that day. And we know it can only be this time in history because we got the internet now. So the prophets probably always wonder, how would this even take place? The prophets was hearing the voice of Yah, and they was hearing that Yah is going to gather all the children of Yasharal from the four corners of the earth at the same time. And they was probably wondering, how is this even going to happen? Now, today, we can understand how it's going to happen because we have internet today. We can talk to somebody who lives in Russia, who lives in South America, who lives in South Africa in 2 minutes by calling them. We can send a text message to them and they can see that text message in 2 seconds. This is the only time period where the gathering could happen. And therefore, we know this is a time period that the gathering will happen. But that, not just the children of Yasharal. We have to understand that all the nations are supposed to gather in Jerusalem to fight against us. So what does that tell you? Jerusalem has to be huge, humongous, for all these people to fit. And then on top of that, all nations have to gather in Jerusalem every year to celebrate Feast of Tabernacles with the children of Yasharal during the time of the New Covenant. So let's see, Zechariah chapter 14 and 6, it says, "And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahuwah of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not go up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahuwah of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain." So let's first understand, surrounded by mountains. As you see, this area right here, we have this bowl-shaped area right here. This is Jerusalem. I'm gonna put it to you like that. This is Jerusalem. This is North Utah. This is the area, the cities closest to it are Etna and Grouse Creek, Utah. You understand? But this whole area is Jerusalem. We have a mountain range to the east, mountain range to the west, curved mountain range to the north, no mountain range to the south, because the south part of Jerusalem is the valley entrance. Now there are some mountains to the south, but they're very small and insignificant. They don't really show up that much on satellite imagery. Mostly hills. But what I want to talk about is see how this area is legitimately surrounded by mountains. However, we can also observe that there are pine trees in Jerusalem. Okay? Here is a pine tree distribution map. As we can see from the distribution map, there is Pinus monophylla that grows in northeast Utah, which is a type of pine tree. Now, also, it's supposed to be destroyed. It's supposed to be heaps and ruins. So before I get into the ruins, let me just show you how to find Jerusalem, right? So we got Utah. This is the area where you should be looking, right in the corner of Utah right here. You see this Y shape, it's very distinctive. See this bowl of mountains. And then I want you to look in this corner, right? And then you'll see like this mountain. And then when you zoom in on the mountain, zoom, 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 then you'll see the ruins. But Google Earth literally updated the graphics for 2024, it looks like. And because of that, the ruins are now hard to see because they got them in the shadows. You can still see some of them. It's a good thing I screenshotted these things before they update. But when we get on Google Maps, they're still there. When we get on Google Maps, they're still there. Easy to see. So that's where, see, there's a lot of ruins on that hill. That's how you find them. But Google Earth updated. Maybe this was purposely, but literally last week when I was on there, it was very easy to see all these ruins but they got them they took it in an angle now to where they're like in the shadows. And as we can see right here, this is a perfect square, and then we can see little rooms right there. Little rooms right there, big, large building, the foundation, and then right here, another one, more walls going this way. So look, see that? And then right here, west of that, this is like an alleyway of some sort, another building, the foundation, right angles. I want you to understand, mountains do not form like this, people. See that? Highlighting it. And then right here, right angle. And it kind of goes all the way down. It looks like there's another room right there. Kind of looks like there's another room right there. Perfect right angle. And it comes along right here. Looks like this was the whole city, if you ask me. Because this is gigantic, by the way, huge. Looks like that's the city walls, probably the gate. Right angles. About 100 degree angle right here, 90 degree. More walls to the outside. And as you can see, just like it says in the prophecy, the mountain of the house is like the high places of the forest. These are not bushes, guys. These are actually trees, specifically Juniperus osteosperma. It's a type of juniper tree that they grow very far apart from each other. They look like bushes, but because of the soil is desertous, there's not that much nutrients in the soil, so they can't really compete for nutrients. So they have to spread a little bit far apart, you know what I'm saying? But this is actually a juniper forest right here, guys. Right here on top of this hill, as you can see, more right angles. This looks like it was at one point the steps to something, like the steps to the higher part of this hill fort, because the Holy Temple and because the city of David was actually upon a hill fort, and it was built upon a millow, which is a rampart. And I'm going to be talking about the millow of Jerusalem, the millow of the city of David in another video. It's a very interesting topic. But right now, I just wanted to show you guys that. By the way, guys, if you want the full PDF to this documentation, click the link in the pinned comment to get on my Patreon. And you will see on my VIP Patreon and my advanced Patreon that I have the entire PDF to this 150 page document where you can see all of this. It's basically like a book, man. And the book will be worth way more than $25, guys. But also, man, join my Patreon because I'm trying to raise money for these expeditions, man. My next expedition, guys, I'm going to fly to Salt Lake City. I'm going to drive up along the coast of the Salt Lake. I'm going to cross the Jordan River, collect some Jordan River water, see if I can get some analysis on that, see what's in it. Then I'm going to go into the city of Jericho, analyze that, and go along the highway into the true Jerusalem, guys. And I'm going to analyze all of this. It's going to be a huge expedition. I'm going to be going from Salt Lake City to the Jordan River, to Jericho, to Jerusalem, guys. It's going to be a huge thing. I'm going to be there for quite a while. So if you guys want to raise the money to help me get there, help me search out and spy out the land to show you guys what's in there and what can be found there, then please support my Patreon. Now, it's supposed to be an agricultural area today. Now, as you can see around here, like right next to the mountain, as you can see, there's a lot of fields right here, plowed like a field. Now, what's important to understand, though, is only a few families own all this land over here. Because when the settlers first settled on this land, they bought up an enormous amounts of acres of land, I'm talking hundreds of acres of land for like $5, man. Ridiculous. So only a few families own all this land over here. And they got fields on it and everything. You see all these wheels, all these circles? Those are farms. All in this valley along this creek. Okay? Also, it's north of a valley that is northwest of another valley. Here we got the Great Valley of Jerusalem. South of that, we got the Valley of Hinnom, which is between this mountain range and these mountains. This is the mountain to the east. And then here's the Valley of Hinnom, where we can find, if we dig, probably be able to find some evidence of child sacrifice. And then to the southeast, we have the Vale of Hebron, also known as Kirjath Arba, also known as the Vale of Giants. Okay? So with that being said, guys, this matches perfectly. Like, there's nothing that this doesn't match. It doesn't pop up in the Middle East. There is no two valleys south of the Jerusalem in the Middle East, or Tel Arad, if you want to say that's the real Jerusalem, or you can't find me a specific location where Jerusalem would be in the Namib Sand Sea of Southern Africa either. So this is the Valley of Hinnom right here. This valley right here. It's at the south side of the Jebusite, meaning it's south of the Great Jerusalem. The mountain to the west of the valley, which is this mountain right here, is connected to the mountain that's at the north side of the Vale of Hebron, Kirjath Arba, or the Valley of Giants, which I explained in Migration Series 3. It's supposed to have a river near it that is altered artificially. So this is what we also must understand, guys. Look, this is Warm Creek. It flows from the northwest and from the north. It's coming down, and then boom, it makes like this cut onto this hill. That's 100% unnatural, guys. Unnatural. That's a man-made canal dug perfectly around. Remember what I said about this? This is an entire city. This is the city of David right here. When we look at the measurements and stuff of that it's huge. It's humongous. And as you can see, the water is coming down and around. Water don't flow like that, baby. Look how a river naturally curves. It don't just make right angles like that and just turn down. That's evidence that somebody altered the course. Now in this image, obviously there is no water here, but in the fall and in the spring, all of this will fill up with water. The mountain to the east should have olive trees upon it. So this is the desert olive distribution map. And as you can see, the northernmost distribution of the desert olive in North America is in the mountain that is to the east of Jerusalem, which is known as the Grouse Creek Mountains. And those mountains have desert olives upon them, but they also have Russian olives growing on it. I often argue with myself over whether the Russian olive is actually indigenous to the Americas or if it was really brought to the United States in the 1900s, like it says online. I mean, it's a possibility, but the fact that the Russian olive spread over all of Western North America, even in the most isolated parts of the desert, in only a few decades is kind of unbelievable. The Russian olive might be indigenous to Western North America and Russia, but it could have also been brought here in the 1900s, like they say. But I don't really know. But the Russian olive and the desert olive, which we know for a fact is indigenous to the Americas, can be found east of where Jerusalem would be in the Americas. You can't show me any olive trees in the Namib Sand Sea, okay? Now, the mountain to the east, this is my favorite part. The mountain to the east should have a fault line under it. Not only any fault line, it should be a transformed boundary. So this is where we said Jerusalem is, guys. And if you wanna look at this, this is a USGS interactive fault line map. You can type that into Google, go to the northwest part of Utah, and then you will see this is where Jerusalem is. This is the tectonic fault line right in the Grouse Creek Mountains. And in the Grouse Creek Mountains, as you can see, there is basically a diagonal fault line right there. Now, why is this important? It says one mountain should remove to the north and another mountain to the south, which tells us, if we continue to read, it says we should flee into that valley. So what we know about that is it's not a divergent boundary, meaning the tectonic plates are not moving away from each other, because if they were, then it would just form a huge ridge in the earth and there'll be magma chambers underneath. If we run into that valley, we'll die. So it has to be a transformed boundary, which means the tectonic plates are rubbing against each other. It's going to make the sound of a huge trumpet, very, very loud, as the tectonic plates slide against each other. And then what we know is when that happens, if you look at the setup of the Grouse Creek Mountains, this side will slide this way and this side will slide that way. So what we have is this mountain right here to the south, this mountain up here to the north, and then there'll be like this valley right around here. And this is what we have to run into and seek refuge. But the valley is not going to be perfectly east to west. It's really going to be more like this. And that's actually good because the armies are right here and we're going to need some coverage of mountain, and we're going to need some type of mountain to hide behind. So when this part of the earth is moving south, right, it's going to have like this gap. It's going to go like that. And we're going to be able to run from there to there. Hope you guys understand what I'm telling you. We're going to be able to run from here into the valley like this. Right now, the valley does not exist, but this part of earth is going to slide right there. It's going to form an empty space right here that we'll be able to run into. You understand? And we'll seek refuge behind this mountain. And then the armies will not be able to harm us. So another thing is, it's large enough to fit all the gathering of the children of Yasharal plus the other nations during Feast of Tabernacles. So with that being said, if we measure this whole bowl over there in northwest Utah, we'll see that its whole area is 286 square miles. That's actually very large. In fact, 286 square miles is enough to fit more than half the current world population. We know in those days the world population would be a lot less, right? But also, it's still going to be a lot, okay? And it's going to go up. The population is going to rise again many, many years after y'all's destruction of the society. The population is going to go up because we're going to be fruitful and multiply. The other nations will also be fruitful and multiply. The beasts of the field will be fruitful and multiply. Our cattle and our goats and our sheep will be fruitful and multiply. So this is going to have to fit all of that. You understand? And 286 square miles is large enough to fit more than half the current world population. So let's look at some additional notes. This is what it looks like upside down when we're looking from the north to the south. And just pay attention. Tell me what you see. Just tell me what you see. Okay? Tell me what you see. This is looking regular, north orientated. Just tell me what you see. Tell me what you see. Oh, what's that? Paleo Hebrew on the earth itself. We got the Yod and we got the Vav or the U. And then Look, you can see it right there. It's clear. The stream comes down the mountain, valley, valley, mountain, mountain, upside down. Tell me what you see right here. All right. View from the north to the south. You clearly see a hay. You clearly see a hay. So now, Deuteronomy 16:5. Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates which Yahuwah thy Elohim giveth thee, but at the place which Yah thy Elohim shall choose to place his name in. There thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at even. Hold up. Yah said he's going to set his name in the place where we sacrifice our Passover, which is Jerusalem. Now, as we know that this scripture is not literally talking about the shape of the mountains and things. When Yah says he's going to set his name in something, that means he's going to set his holy presence, his frequency in that area. However, we also know that Yah does things in multiple ways. He loves to put hidden signs in things all the time. Just like we found out that Yah's name is in our DNA. So with this being said, it's not a reach to say that maybe Yah was just being extra creative and put his name literally on Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, this is not real proof. I just thought this was pretty cool. But let's continue to read. Deuteronomy 12:5. But unto the place which Yah your Elohim shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither thou shalt come. But if you turn unto me and keep my commandments, this is Nehemiah 1:9, and do them, though there were of you cast out unto the uttermost part of heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and bring them into the place which I have chosen to set my name there. So we see the characters of the Tetragrammaton on the real Jerusalem. As we can see right here, this is the most obvious one, right? The creeks coming in from the rivers form a Y shape, but that Y shape is really a Paleo-Hebrew Vav, and it means join, nail, secure, establish. Now, or it could mean, and it literally represents a nail, a peg, or a hook, joining together, making secure, becoming bound. Okay, so it basically means to establish. Okay, Isaiah 2:2. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahuwah's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Isaiah 62:7. And give him no rest till he establish and make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. This is going to be the city forever. When we go back to the land, guess what? Jerusalem will never fall. This city will never, ever go away. This city will be established. The only city to ever be established for all eternity. Do you understand? Established means to make something long term, to make something forever. And Jerusalem is the only city that will be established forever. Do you understand? So with that being said, wouldn't it make sense for y'all to put like the Hebrew letter for establish on Jerusalem? I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying. Zechariah 14:16. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahuwah of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. What does that mean? They shall be dwelling in tents, and it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families on the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahuwah of hosts. Even upon them shall be no rain. So what do we see here? Jerusalem is going to be the land of tents. That's what everybody's going to know is Jerusalem as. When all the nations of the earth shall flock to Jerusalem year in and year out, they're going to know, the children are going to know it as the city of tents. What does this letter symbolize? A nail, a peg, a hook, a tent peg. What is a peg? Basically what you use to bind a tent into the ground, guys. I can't make this stuff up. And then on top of that, guys, my last theory on this is that Yahuwah knows that we will be speaking English in our last captivity, and Yahuwah has created all languages. So with that being said, Yahuwah literally labeled Jerusalem. He put a Y right there. Y for Jerusalem. And also a Y for Yah. And a Y for Yahudah. So with that being said, he literally labeled it, man. He labeled it for us to know where it's at. So it's a Y and a Vav at the same time. Can't make this stuff up, man. He labeled it for us. It's literally in the earth. You can make up any artifacts. You can make up history. You can fake some stuff in the British Museum, but what you can't fake is the mountains. You can't fake the streams. You can't fake all that stuff that I proved in this video. This is the land of Jerusalem. If you have diarrhea, you need red raspberry leaf tea. If you have indigestion, you need red raspberry leaf tea. If you're farting, you got gas, you bloated, you need peppermint tea. If you are constipated, you need dandelion root tea. If you have stomach ulcers of any kind, you need licorice root. If you have any type of gut inflammation, you need ginger, turmeric, or chamomile. And if you get food poisoning, specifically E. coli or anything very serious like that, you need cloves in your system. Now, I just gave you some of the keys to deal with stomach and intestine problems. But if you want to fix any of those specific problems at any time with a master key that can unlock every door, then what you need is J&R Eating Herbs Stomach and Digestion Support Tonic. Alright, y'all, let me put y'all on game real quick. This is Jeremiah chapter 50. We have to understand this chapter. Let's start at the very first verse. It says, the word that Yahuwah spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. So we're all the way back in 586 BC when the children of Judah were just getting exiled into the land of Babylon. And it says in verse 2, it says, declare ye amongst the nations and publish and set up a standard, publish and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken, Baal is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces, her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. For out of the north there cometh up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, and they shall depart, both man and beast. So it says Babylon is confounded, Babylon is broken in pieces, her idols are broken, etc. But then it says a nation comes against Babylon out of the north. So something's even further north of Babylon. A nation comes against Babylon, and it says that nation shall leave Babylon desolate. But it says that nation shall leave. It'll come to destroy Babylon and it's going to leave. It's not even going to dwell in the land, okay? Even the animals will leave. So with that being said, this is not the Persians, because the Persians, they dwelt in Babylon. All right. And also the Persians did not come to destroy Babylon. They came to rule over Babylon's economy. However, this particular nation is coming up out of the north. It's coming just to lay swift desolation on Babylon and leave. That matches perfectly what happened when the Vikings came down from the North Sea and made their way into Quebec and slew and slaughtered many of the Indians of Quebec, and then went back to Scandinavia. They didn't even dwell there. They just went down there, and then they killed people, and then they went back. And it's not in recorded history exactly what they did when they got to Quebec, but knowing the Vikings and knowing what the Vikings did, it is safe to conclude that they went there to take women. That's what the Vikings did. They went there to take women. So with that being said, in order to take women, you have to kill a lot of men. Okay? Some people will come from north, kill a lot of people, and then leave. That's literally what happened with the Vikings going into Quebec. But that's not the point of what I'm trying to get at. This is the point. It says, in those days and in that time. Normally, the prophet will say, in that day. But it says, in those days. So we have to understand that day, when you read the word day in scripture, it's not always talking about a 24-hour or a 12-hour period of time. Sometimes a day could be 100 years, 50 years, 1,000 years, etc. It basically just means a non-specified period of time, an epoch, if you will. It's not specified. We don't know exactly how long it is. It's not a few hours. Most of the time in the prophecies, when it says in that day and at that time, that means in that period of time. But it says in those days, so in those time periods, which means an extended amount of yomim, okay? Then, guess what? It says, in those days and in that time, saith Yahuwah, the children of Yasharal shall come, they and the children of Yehuda together, going and weeping, they shall go and seek Yahuwah their Elohim. So this is not talking about when the children of Yasharal is coming out of the Babylonian captivity. Why is that? Because the nation of Yasharal never went into Babylonian captivity. Only the tribe of Judah went into the Babylonian captivity. But it says here that the children of Yasharal and the children of Yehuda together. So this is not talking about the Babylonian captivity. This is talking about the final captivity that will come after the Babylonian captivity, that will come after the Vikings left desolation to Babylon. This is talking about after that time period, because in those days, which means in that extended period of time after that, okay, it says, then the children of Yasharal, because basically, I want you guys to understand that the Vikings went to Babylon only 1,000 years ago. So it said in those days and at that time. So in that time period, which is still kind of right now, right? It says the children of Yasharal shall come, and they of the children of Judah together, going and weeping, they shall go and seek Yahuwah their Elohim. Now this is the point that I'm getting at. This is talking about the gathering of the final captivity, the dispersed of the children of Yasharal. Verse 5, this is where I'm getting at, guys. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come and let us join ourselves to Yahuwah in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. Now, why is this important? It says they shall ask the way to Zion. I mean, they're like, where's Jerusalem at? Where is Jerusalem? They shall ask the way to Zion, which means they're asking themselves, where is Jerusalem? But it says their faces shall be thitherward. That means their faces shall be towards Jerusalem. They're literally going to be looking at Jerusalem. And they're going to be saying, wait, aren't we supposed to be going to Jerusalem? Why is this going to happen? Because guess what? The children of Yasharal think Jerusalem is in the Middle East, and they think that Jerusalem is in Africa. And they're going to be so shocked when Yah leads us to Utah in the complete opposite direction. We're going to be looking at Jerusalem. We're going to be going the opposite direction that we thought we were supposed to be going. And that's why we're going to be asking the way to Zion with our faces thitherward. We're going to be like, I'm looking at the land, but I understand you said that's Jerusalem, but this isn't the direction to Jerusalem. Where is Jerusalem? What's the correct direction to Jerusalem? These are the things that we're going to be saying while we're looking at the land. We're looking at the land of Jerusalem, but we're still going to be asking where it's at. So this verse tells us many things. One, that they lied to us about the location of Jerusalem, so we're going to be asking directions to Jerusalem, right? And two, that it's in the opposite direction of where we think it's at, because we're going to be looking at it and we're going to be asking where it's at. So our face is going to be towards it, and we're still going to be confused as to why we're going in that direction, which means that we're going in the opposite direction that we thought we were supposed to be going in. So that means they flipped the map completely on the opposite side. This scripture alone tells you that. Also, it says that the Gentiles will understand that they have inherited lies. It says the Gentiles will come to Yah and they will understand that they've inherited lies. Yes, all the people on earth believe a lie. That Jerusalem is in the Middle East, that is a lie. That Jerusalem is in Africa, that is a lie.